You see, every time she's in the patch notes, I get worried, because I know that there is some clownery happening.
Just a bunch of toots first.
You can kill people faster by fucking punching them now. Oh, and those wonderfully buffed 100 damage orbs? They don't two-shot supports. Girl, what was even the point? I don't understand. Like, it's almost as if they gave Pharah and Widow 120 damage primaries, because 1 point of healing means they can't two-shot if they did 100. So in case you're not aware, I'm Halix, I'm a top 500 Symmetra player, and I've been all over Reddit, the forums, wherever, preaching that these changes are just irredeemably bad. Everything about them, awful, terrible. I think a lot of players are seeing these changes and they immediately jump to assume that they're buffs without understanding what Symmetra actually does, especially at a high level. Of course, some of these things are going to help her in some very niche situations, or, help her do what she already does very well, even better, which is why they are so bad. I think it's best to first talk about the shield regeneration, then talk about her orbs, and then finally the turrets, which in my opinion are the biggest offender. So, to start, the shield regeneration. 30 healing per second on Sym herself is not bad. Nothing about that is bad at all. It's objectively a good help. However, I think a lot of people are missing the context in which Sym is taking damage and she dies, which is why these actually don't help nearly as much as you might think. To start, I think it's best worth mentioning that these changes only help Sym against 9 heroes. Ramatra, Reinhardt, Sigma, Winston, Wrecking Ball, Zarya, so 6 tanks, Symmetra, 1 DPS hero, Brig, and Zenyatta, 2 supports. It's worth mentioning that if they don't have any of these heroes, you literally do not get that buff. It does not exist, you cannot apply it. When talking about why they wanted to change Sym, one of their direct statements was that she was exceptionally map dependent. So how does this help that at all? Even outside of her ability to proc this, I think what a lot of people are totally missing is that most of the time when you die a Sym, it's because you're practically getting one shot. Her head hitbox is so massive that any hit scan can just walk up, dink her, and she's gone. 30 healing per second does not help that because she does not struggle against sustained damage. So far we're 0 for 1. The directed changes were to make her less niche, and somehow they have a change that does nothing to help that. It only helps her against Brawl, which Sym is already great against. She doesn't need help against Brawl. Sym already destroys Reinhardt. That's not an issue. That's not her problem. She doesn't need help doing that. Moving on to the orbs. While in theory, you can two-shot, what this completely ignores is that any point of healing at all will stop this. Most obviously, you see this happening with Brig or Lucy who have AoE auras. So if you're playing against them, you literally cannot two-shot. However, a lot of people haven't realized that this also applies to the support passive. So say you're against like a Mercy or an Ana or something along those lines. If you don't hit them with both orbs, directly, exactly without a single 0.1 second of downtime, their passive will kick in, they get healed, you can't two-shot them anymore. Without any overflow damage, the window to two-shot is so minusculely tiny that it might as well just not even be there. Sym already has incredibly high time to kill for most DPS heroes. Without turrets, your lethality is just gone. It's not there. So finally we're brought to turrets. And this is just tragic. It's so tragic. So you're telling me that you saw Sym players beg and plead and, everything for a support rework for like 4 years. And instead of giving them a support rework, you had many chances to do so many opportunities. You, 1, introduced Lifeweaver, so that's the nail in the coffin. We have our Hardlight support. There's no reason to keep support Sym even just in the back of our minds. But then you keep on dangling these utility abilities and supportive abilities in front of the faces of Sym players. Why? You're just teasing them. It's just mean. If we're gonna have no support Sym, you have to commit. There's none of this middle ground. This is so dumb. Either DPS hero or support. Because this utility DPS thing, it makes no one happy. The Sym players hate this rework. Everyone I've talked to hates it. Muma hates it. I've talked to him. He's another top 500 Sym player. I think he was an Overwatch League player. Everyone in the Sym subreddit and the Sym Discord player, they all hate it. They hate it. It's terrible. Either we want support Sym or we want DPS. We don't want this weird middle. Commit to one or the other. Outside of that, I truly cannot stress how useless Sonar is for Sym. I mean, seriously, in my, 20 games since she's been reworked, I think I've maybe found it useful once or twice. I mean, seriously, it's kind of like the devs forgot why sonar is useful for snipers. Hanzo and Widow both have the potential to one-shot or at least take off like 2/3 of an enemy's health bar, if they're squishy, of course. They can turn almost instantly just one-shot someone. There is no delay, there is no projectile, they don't have to charge up a shot, really. Obviously, they kind of do, but they can hold it forever. However, Sym, she can't do that at all. She has nothing even close. For one, she has to charge up her shots, so there's a good delay before she can actually shoot something off to the sonar target. But two, she has a projectile. It's slow. It takes forever to reach it. By the time you've seen someone sonared and you have a projectile charged up, it's going to take forever for it to travel and actually hit someone. A Hanzo or Widow can just snap, turn, instantly kill someone who's sonared. Sym can let her team know, I guess. And of course, she has no kind of one-shot potential. Theoretically, you could even give another flanker like Sombra wall hacks, which she does have, but why they're good for her is because she's so advantaged in a 1v1. Sym is not advantaged in a 1v1, ever. She has the lowest DPS output in the game until she has her beam charged up. She can only two-shot, and it's very slow at that. Without turret bombs, she is the weakest 1v1 DPS in the game, without a doubt. So how is this sonar ever useful for her? What it comes down to is, well, sometimes it is useful for her team. And to that I say, we are not playing a support hero. Support Symmetra is long in the past. So why are we still giving her supportive abilities? I've already talked about this. Sym players would love Sym support. I would wake up and cry if I found out Sym was getting reworked to his support. So why are we still doing this halvesies utility DPS thing? Commit to either DPS or support. Stop with this madness. No more of this tomfoolery. Regardless of all of that, turrets already could do this. They would alert you when someone was getting shot. They would alert you when they were broken. Most of the time, and by most of the time I mean 95% of the time, you know exactly who's in your backline. It's gonna be the tracer. So what does the sonar really do for Sym? Even for her team, what does it do that old turrets couldn't do? I mean, really, let's think about what happened here. They said they wanted to make Sym less map dependent, so they made her more dependent on the enemy team having shields or shield health. They made her turrets worse, which just directly nerfs her poke and flank playstyles, which are, the ones that you're using probably 85% of the time. It's also 100% worth mentioning that these new turrets are being pushed into a very passive playstyle. You're encouraged to just set them on flanks and then forget about them, which is just not a good way to use them. Turrets are already passive, but at least old turrets were a little bit more interactive with Sym's kit since you could teleport them around. It really seemed like Sym was finally in a place where she was balanced and Sym players were actually happy. Which is, I'm a Sym player, I know how we can be. That's a very hard thing to do. So why mess with it? Anyways, hopefully this gave you an idea of what the issue was. They just nerfed her versatility by nerfing turrets, so now she can only brawl. She's better at brawling, which she didn't need because she's already great at it. Orbs are not nearly as strong as you might think. Turrets are just bad now, seriously, they're just a passive dead ability. Revert this madness and just fix her. She was fine how she was.